What's up, guys? Welcome to the NFL Mock Draft 2020 Part 2. So we're entering the second round, folks. I did my second version of the first round over on the YouTube channel, and I thought, you know what? Let's go to round 2. So that way we can talk about the draft with some of these teams that don't actually have some first round picks. So that way you want to make sure you check out round 1 in that previous video that was uploaded about last week, and make sure you watch it over on the Underdog Sports Network. One note I want to just be clear about is I made a slight change for the Seahawks in round 1. I swapped out Terrell Lewis, an edge player from Alabama, to my guy Josh Jones, offensive tackle from Houston. At this point, I don't think that Lewis is necessarily going to be a first-round pick, so he has been #demoted. Jones fits the scheme really well in Seattle at offensive tackle, so he's the pick at 27. That's the only change I've made. Everything else is the same, so make sure you go check out that video. But for now, let's dive into part 2, and be warned, you are going to be shocked, just as Curtis Samuel is to my left whenever he sees passes come from Kyle Allen. All right, so going into the second round here, we have got our number 1 player from the second round is our guy, Marlon Davidson, interior defensive lineman from Auburn. I know that Derek Brown's getting a lot of hype, but this guy was pretty good as well. When you look at this whole draft as a whole, basically, you're looking at the fact that it's going to be Roger Goodell's basement, digital draft. Teams are going to hone in on players that they're familiar with. The Bengals coaching staff coached the South team in the Senior Bowl this year. And I think they're going to actually take one of the players that they got to spend a lot of time with because of the fact that the medicals and team visits are all being messed up this year. So I think they're going to look for someone that they really are more comfortable with a guy like Marlon Davidson, who they coach at the Senior Bowl. The Bengals need to improve their 32nd worst ranked defensive line from last year in terms against the run. They were so bad, so I think adding Davidson to go along with free agent DJ Reader should help plug up that defensive interior. At number 34, a guy that I am not hugely high on as a receiver is T. Higgins. He is the wide receiver from Clemson, and the Colts need to upgrade the receiver position. And really, I'm kind of following the betting lines here, honestly. The betting lines are projecting Higgins to go to the Colts. That's the best odds in terms, or the most favorable odds in terms of his landing spots. He differs a little bit from all the other receivers there. He's an X-receiver. He would kind of be a good fit for Phillip Rivers in terms of a go-and-get-it guy. He wins the contested catches. He's not really a great separator, so that would leave more like T.Y. Hilton to be more of like a Keenan Allen type, or Paris Campbell to be more of a Keenan Allen type receiver for Phillip Rivers, whereas he would kind of profile as more as of a Mike Williams, so kind of go up and get it, which obviously we saw Phillip Rivers play with in Los Angeles and San Diego. In 2019, Higgins' yards per reception was 19.8. In yards per route run was 3.67. Both those ranked 5th among receivers with at least 80 targets in the NCAA. At number 35, we got the Detroit Lions back on the clock. Zach Bond going off the edge. And again, this is kind of driving the narrative behind the Senior Bowl. Zach Bond played a lot with the North team for the Lions, and he was really kind of filled that will linebacker spot in Lions 3-4. He's a perfect fit for the Detroit defense. And again, Matt Patricia's the coach there. He wants a defense him up. That's what I'd like to pick here. Zach Bond, edge from Wisconsin. At number 36, we got the Giants back on the clock. And in my mock, they took Isaiah Simmons with the 4th overall pick. So now they need to go back and get an offensive tackle. And this is a very strong tackle class. So I'm not so, intimidated by the fact that they may need to go with offensive tackle 36 if they take Simmons. So this is what I like here with Tega Wananoga. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. But again, they follow up with a tackle to prevent their franchise quarterback with Wanagao. Again, I apologize if I did not pronounce that correctly. Leave a comment below if there's a better way that you can pronounce it. Number 37, the Los Angeles Chargers are on the clock. Again, they're going to go with offensive tackle. They got their quarterback in the future in the first round, so they need to add some additional protection. Considering that Tagovailoa is left-handed, they need to solidify the right tackle position. The blindside switches here, which I'm really intrigued to kind of see how that plays out. Whoever does end up taking Tua, if they address the right tackle position, I'm obviously doing it because I am, smart that I like to think, but we'll see if the NFL GMs feel the same way. Nienge profiles as a right tackle at the next level, which is why I like him here as the pick here for the Los Angeles Chargers at 37. At number 38, we have Xavier McKinney from Alabama. The Panthers need some playmakers on defense. That's very, very, very huge. So they need to make a splash here with Alabama. A lot of people have McKinney going in the first round. So I think that getting him at 38 is a steal. If you look at that depth chart for the Panthers, they have Trey Boston and really not much else. And Trey Boston isn't exactly, a spring chicken. He's on the other half of 27 years old. So I don't necessarily love the fact that that's all they have. So they need another playmaker, Xavier McKinney. Again, the Panthers aren't trying to win this year. They obviously just signed Christian McCaffrey for a long-term deal. But again, my guy Curtis Samuel will say, they're not in win mode now. They're trying to just collect talent, not necessarily hey, we need to win a bunch of games. And adding a safety, again, doesn't really help you win more games. But again, he's a player that can be a great piece of a building block of a defense, like what we saw from the first round. Number 39, the first running back goes off the board here with DeAndre Swift from Georgia for the Miami Dolphins. They're going to further roster, build up for the upcoming season. They want to get the running back of the future. Jordan Howard is not the long-term solution, but Swift is. He's a potential 3-down back feature in the NFL. I think it's a lock here. I just like the value here more than taking a running back in the first round. At number 40, you have the Houston Texans on the clock here. This is their first second-round pick, and because they traded away their other one, so they still have 40, and they're going to go with Ross Blacklock, nose tackle from TCU. Bill O'Brien finally gets to make his first pick, and of course they go with the nose tackle, and this is probably going to upset a lot of Houston and things like that, but again, they need to replace DJ Reader, and Blacklock does have some pass rush abilities from the interior, so that's why I like him here to pair with J.J. Watt's not getting any younger. Let's be honest with that. And the Texans were fourth worst in sack percentage last year. The edge class is not great, so I think they're going to try to force more pressure from the interior. Again, finding replacement for DJ Reader is huge here. At number 41, we have the Cleveland Browns on the clock. And they're going to go with the safety position here. Antoine Winfield Jr., senior safety from Minnesota. They're lacking a lot of playmakers, basically, ever since they traded Shapiro Peppers. They really haven't addressed the position. They have Carl Joseph and Andrew Sendejo, which are not really the greatest starters. The guys have kind of roamed around a little bit. So I think Winfield Jr. would be an immediate upgrade for these guys here. So I really like that pick for the Cleveland Browns. He can kind of be a roaming free safety. And they have good corners, so I think that he can definitely do a little bit more, be a more movable chess piece for that defense on the Browns. At 42, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock, and they go with KJ Hamler, a guy that not a lot of people are talking about, I think, at the receiver position, but I think he fits what the Jaguars want to do very well. Hamler played basically 100% of the slot. He never really saw the outside. So we don't really know if he can get off press or not, but we know he's fast. Again, there have been rumors, specifically from Matthew Berry. Matthew Berry writes a great column about things he learns from the combine. He was right about Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers. So you want to, definitely, look it up, make sure you take a read at it. But something I noticed about it was they wanted to move D.D. Westbrook outside more. That was something that he saw was something in the chatter when he was talking to Jacksonville Jaguar people. So I think that with Hamler playing exclusively in the slot, you have Chark, D.D. Westbrook both on the outside. I think that makes Hamler a guy that they can really open up down the seams. And that's where Gardner Minshew's good. He is best suited for throwing the ball down the field. And in 2019, specifically with Hamler, 28% of his passes thrown his way were more than 20 yards downfield. His yards per route run from the slot, 2.45, ranked 11th in the NCAA, and he had 9 receiving. He ranked 9th in receiving touchdowns with 8 from the slot. So he's a guy that I think would be great slot receiver. Jacksonville's been pretty good with drafting receivers. It seems kind of like we always say, hey, the Steelers draft a lot of great receivers, but they've drafted Allen Robinson, J.J. Chark, D.D. Westbrook, Allen Hurns, I think he was actually undrafted, but they've brought in a lot of guys that have flashed on teams. So we shall see, but I like KJ Hamler. I think that people are sleeping on him just because he wasn't able to test at the NFL Combine, but the guy's fast. He does have some hashtag wheels. At number 43, we've got Lloyd Cushenberry. That Chicago Bears offensive line is a mess. They need help, interior offensive line, so guard. They're going to go with the best guard on the board here with Cushenberry, who I love the name, Cushenberry. It just sounds like a football player. Cushenberry is one of those guys that's named Witherspoon. Those are really great names, I think, for, linemen. DeBrickashaw Ferguson, those are some of the great O-lineman names for sure. Number 44, we have the Colts back on the clock, and they're going to address the secondary here with Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson, my first mock draft, actually went the first round to the Chiefs. He actually falls a little bit here to the Colts. He does have first round potential, don't get me wrong. He could definitely go in the first round. I've seen him mocked to the Raiders in the first round, but I think that ultimately, a first round corner is probably going to fall in the second round. And just in this case, it is Jalen Johnson. Xavier Rhodes was a Pro Bowler last year, but we all can read between the tea leaves. He's dust. He is dust at this point. And that's what they have as their starting corner because they released Pierre Desir and they have TJ Carey as the other starting cornerback. They need a starting cornerback desperately or they're going to get whipped by some of these receivers in the AFC South like consistently. So Jalen Johnson's the play here at Utah. I think it makes a lot of sense. At Tampa Bay, number 45, we've got Jonathan Taylor. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers is going to be a fantasy hype train, essentially, if Jonathan Taylor ends up here. They're probably going to take a running back. It makes a lot of sense. But the Buccaneers are looking to add a pass-catching running back. But again, I think that they just, hey, Jonathan Taylor's here. He's the best running back available. And it's not like Taylor can't catch passes. Again, it's just a function of the offense he was in at Wisconsin. They just don't feature the running back in the passing game that much. But he can do it. He's the best running back in this class, in my opinion, as a runner, as everything else. Really, honestly, if anyone tells you that some running back is great pass pro, that's a rookie, not many of the running backs really are. Honestly, like a lot of the knocks on all of them, none of them are really elite. You can't because you don't do it that much. So I think that if anyone's saying, hey, like this guy's elite is a pass pro, I don't know if that's something I would buy. But Jonathan Taylor, I think he is the best running back in the class. And I think that he's still, in 2019, he still had 26 catches for 250 yards. He caught 5 touchdowns. So I was like, man, he can do it. And he's got TB12. He's got #GOAT. So Jonathan Taylor, number 45 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At number 46, you got the Denver Broncos, Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor is like probably my favorite receiver prospect. He's not in the first round here because I think that the NFL is not as high as him as Fantasy Twitter and myself are on. But I love Jalen Reagor. I think that he's going to be a smash play for anyone that, gets him. I think that he's not like a poor man's Henry Ruggs, but I think that he can possess his elite speed, elite explosiveness, and he can stretch the field. I think the Broncos is a perfect complement for Courtland Sutton, and I just love the play here. I just love the fit with him opening things up for Noah Fant, Courtland Sutton underneath. Drew Lock needs a deep threat receiver. That's what he was best at in college. He didn't really have that as much last year, so I think that just having an explosive player like Jalen Reagor is just something that's going to be really helpful for him in the long term. And we also have a family connection here. Broncos drafted his father, Monte Reagor, back in 1999. What better FaceTime or, when they virtual draft, they go to Jalen Reagor's house, they got Monte Reagor wearing his Broncos jersey. Jalen Reagor whips out the Broncos hat. Man, it'd just be too perfect. At number 47, we've got the Atlanta Falcons on the clock here. And they're going to go running back too because Todd Gurley's knees are probably going to bust. They are combustible. They are going to explode and stop working at some point. So J.K. Dobbins is the play here from running back from Ohio State. Dan Quinn has kind of already come out and said things like the strongest positions in this class are running back, receiver, offensive tackle, defensive tackle. We've already taken a defensive lineman, so now they address the running back position to take over in 2021 as a full-time after Todd Gurley's knee finally turns to dust. Gurley's only on a 1-year contract, so I think that they bring in J.K. Dobbins, get him acclimated. There's no one else on that depth chart, and then Todd Gurley, let's say during the end. I could see if fantasy football, J.K. Dobbins goes here, or whatever running back the Falcons take, I think is a fantasy football league winner. I'm just saying that right now because I think that Todd Gurley will kind of sizzle out, and I think that Falcons offense is going to be high-flying, top-5 offense, all these shootouts with AFC South quarterbacks. I just think that keep an eye on whoever lands there because I think that their potential for the end-of-a-run season is massive. Number 48, the New York Jets are on the clock. Ezra Cleveland. They went with a wide receiver in my earlier round 1 mock. So again, they need to address the offensive lineman here with an offensive tackle. Cleveland's got some first-round buzz, so getting him at 48 seems like a pretty good value. And he's a super athletic offensive lineman. He ran a 4.93, which ranks in the 96th percentile in terms of a 40-yard dash for an offensive lineman. He's 6'6" and 311 pounds. That is moving. That is fast. His Spark X score was 124.6, was the highest of any offensive lineman at the NFL Combine. I know a lot of people were highlighting Mekhi Becton's, offensive, athleticism, but Ezra Cleveland, from Boise State, he did the same thing. So I like him there at 48. At number 49, the Steelers finally get to pick after trading their first-round pick to get Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Dolphins. They get Neville Gallimore, defensive lineman, Oklahoma. This is basically just like a plug-and-play, replacement for Javon Hargrave, who they let go. So I think that he just is a cheaper option. They just got to stack that defense, honestly, and just hope that if Big Ben can just be like 75% of himself, like that team is a playoff team. Considering they made playoffs last year, and they had literally the worst quarterback play like on the planet. If their defense can maintain for another year, and that offense just picks up the slack just even a little bit, I think that Steelers are going to be a team to be reckoned with, and kind of a team that people are sleeping on. Maybe a team that I talked to Sean about on the Pick 6 podcast. We'll see. At number 50, the Chicago Bears are back on the clock. They're going to go with the safety here, Jeremy Chin. I can't imagine a lot of Chicago fans are going to love this pick, but again, they did not force enough turnovers last year. In 2018, they were number 1 in the league in terms of forced turnovers. 2019, they ranked 21st. Chin is a playmaker. That is what he does. He makes plays. He causes turnovers, forces fumbles, gets interceptions. Went to a small school, Southern Illinois, but he's close to Chicago. He's a local guy, so I think that this fit here makes a lot of sense for Jeremy Chin to land. And he also is impactful in the run game, too. So I like Chicago Bears getting Jeremy Chin here at number 50, who, again, another guy who's receiving a lot of first-round buzz. You got to love that first-round buzz. At number 51, we've got the Dallas Cowboys on the clock. They're going to go with Kyle Duggar, safety from Lenore-Renine. However you pronounce that. It's a small school for sure. But again, the Cowboys need to not necessarily just, hey, we've got to plug up all the holes. I know a lot of people have been mocking getting an offensive lineman because Travis Frederick, and that could be totally right. They're just going to plug up the hole they lost, but they need to look a little bit forward, look a little bit ahead, which again, how they trade all these contracts, maybe this isn't something that they would actually do, but this is what I think would make sense for them. Clinton Dix, they signed, is on a one-year deal. Presumed starter Xavier Woods is also scheduled to be a free agent next year. They need to address the secondary in some way, shape, or form. Get a guy cheap, just not have veterans. They lost, what's his face? Not Heath Ledger, Jeff Heath. Yeah, Jeff Heath. So the safety doesn't look like a need right now, but it's going to be in 12 months. So let's address it with a good player here, Kyle Duggar from Lenore-Rhine. Also, apparently he ran like a 4.38 or something. Oh, no, that was a different guy. Just kidding, JK. At number 52, we got the Los Angeles Rams on the clock. Here we go. They're going to go with Julian Okra. They need some help at the edge with pass rush. They lost Dante Fowler. So again, I'm not in love with this edge class, but they just need a guy so that they get Julian Okra from Notre Dame. At number 53, we got the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, honestly, if your team takes a cornerback and you don't need a cornerback, you should not be disappointed. Teams need as many cornerbacks as possible. Cornerbacks get hurt all the time. And if you have one bad corner and he's playing, your team is so, it's so bad. Because the teams just target that one cornerback that sucks. So you want to have as many good corners, as physically possible. And in a class that's, pretty good from the cornerback, you should be happy if your team takes a corner, either on day 1 or day 2. I think that's really solid. No matter if it's a need or not, it looks like, we're good to go. It's you never know. Jacksonville Jaguars looked like they were great last year with A.J. Boye and Jalen Ramsey, and now they don't have any corners, so keep that in mind. So the Eagles, even though they traded for Darius Slay, I think they need to keep building on that cornerback secondary. They're going to go with Damon Arnett, and I like the play here because Damon Arnett played at Ohio State with Jeff Okudah, who everyone is kind of locked into number 3 to the Detroit Lions, myself included, but he's the number 1 cornerback in this class. But Damon Arnett, I think that he offers a little bit more. He's used to being picked on, honestly. He's just that Jeff Okudah was locking down the other side of the field. Darius Slay is going to do that for the Eagles. I think that Damon Arnett really fits the scheme well, playing across from a guy like Slay. So I think that makes a lot of sense here for the Eagles. He can play outside. He can play in the slot. He can even play free safety. So again, they lost Malcolm Jenkins, and maybe having Damon Arnett is just another plug-and-play piece because injuries happen. Hey, we got to move in the slot. Hey, we got to play free safety. He can do it all. So I really like Arnett there for 53 for the Eagles. At number 54, the Buffalo Bills are on the clock. They're going to go with an edge player here. Add to the defensive line. He fits into the 4-3 scheme. Situational pass rusher on third downs. They're trying to make a run, so they need to make a guy that can make some impactful plays on third downs. Curtis Weaver, edge from Boise State. At number 55, we've got the Baltimore Ravens on the clock. And guys, they're just going to add to this offense and just make it so scary. Laviska Shenault, wide receiver from Colorado. Basically, this guy, he got basically compared to Saquon Barkley by Mike Renner from PFF as a athlete, and that's what he does in space. He breaks tackles. Since 2017, per PFF, he has forced the most missed tackles at the wide receiver position. He's played wildcat quarterback. They can do some crazy things with him, and that would make this offense just even more scary with Marquise Brown. And you'll see what they do with another pick that I have them taking. And yeah, it's going to make more people terrified. At number 56, we have the Dolphins again, and they are going to address the wide receiver position Really, they have Devontae Parker, they have Preston Williams, but again, Preston Williams was an undrafted free agent, so I'm not so sure that they're going to be looking at him such long-term. He was great. I think whatever they get at from him, I think they're going to be like, hey, great, that's awesome, we got Preston Williams. But I think they need to invest kind of long-term into some of these receivers. Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State, again, another guy that Daniel Jeremiah from NFL.com is really high on. He has first-round buzz. But I think that Ayuk is a great player to pair with Parker and Preston Williams on the outside. Ayuk can play in the slot. That's something that Albert Wilson really hasn't done. And Ayuk is a yak monster. 2019, according to Sports Info Solutions, he ranked 4th in yards per target and 2nd in yards per route run, 2nd in yards after the catch per reception. He is a monster with the ball in his hands. And people have said that he's a better prospect than N'Keal Harry. I don't like to think that because I'm a Patriots fan. So, I'm not so sure. But, Brandon Ayuk, I'm warming on him. He was a guy I was not really high on during the beginning. I thought more about it, looked at him a little bit more, and I think I actually do like him a lot more. I like him more than T. Higgins. I'll tell you that much. At number 57, we got the Los Angeles Rams on the clock. This is actually the pick that got traded, so I apologize for the Texans logo there because, Bill O'Brien, hey, here we go. You never know what that guy's going to do. So they're going to still take the same guy here, Netane Muti, interior offensive lineman, so this is the Rams pick. He projects to be a left guard. They need so much help on this offensive line. They need to figure out if Jared Goff is the guy. I would not be surprised if Jared Goff's gone next year because everyone else is gone. But they need a line to at least further evaluate him. Muti could replace Austin Blythe at right guard for the Rams. He can play both guard spots, so I think that they'll like his versatility. Blythe was the 101st graded guard last year out of 123, and then their right guard, Austin Corbett, was not much better at 95. So their guards have been terrible, the Rams, last year, so I think adding just an interior offensive lineman is a really good move for the Rams here. And yeah, Bill O'Brien, sorry, you lost your pick, man, so that's not going to be there for you. At number 58, we got the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Madubuike, interior defensive lineman from Texas A&M. The Vikings need to generate more pressure from the interior. He basically profiles as this piece that they can kind of move anywhere on the defensive line. Mike Zimmer can kind of put him here, 3 technique in different places. So I like the fact that he would go to the Vikings here to help that pass rush, especially because they're not really sure what they're doing with Daniel Hunter. He's still kind of up in the air with what he's doing. So we're going to go with, maybe this will force his hand a little bit more. 59, we got the Seattle Seahawks. They're going to also go with an edge. I know that we had them originally go with an edge in the first round in the last mock. This is where they get it. It doesn't look like Jadeveon Clowney's coming back to Seattle, so they're going with John Usha. So this is their pass rusher. Again, I don't love this edge class, but because it's an edge, people are going to get risen up, and I think that he can work as off-ball linebacker. He can work as an edge rusher. They can move him around a little bit, so I like him there at 59. At number 60, again, I told you the Ravens were going to be dangerous, and what do? They get Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was basically one of the best running backs in college last year, played on that great LSU offense. Mark Ingram, they have it out with him in 2021. Oh, man, if they have Laviska Shenault, Marquise Brown, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justice Hill, Lamar Jackson, oh my God. It's going to bring a whole element. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire specifically is going to bring a whole other element to the passing game for the Ravens. He had 55 receptions last year for LSU. So, again, this could just be wild, honestly. I'm afraid, just thinking about how good the Ravens could be next year if they make all these additions. And at number 61, our guy, Terrell Lewis. He's been demoted, yes, but he still goes in the second round. I know that I moved him out of the first round. How the mighty have fallen. But I kind of like him playing here because I think that the Titans could use more edge. And he's a first-round talent. I was not wrong in that, but again, his medicals are a concern. But what gives me a reason for taking him to the Titans is the fact that the Titans last year took Jeffrey Simmons, who was hurt, legit. He was hurt, and they still took him in the first round. So they're going to follow the same philosophy, and it paid off because he ended up playing down the stretch. So I like the philosophy here, taking a guy like Lewis because he's a first-round talent. So contingency plan, and Vic Beasley, again, doesn't really generate a solid pass rush because Vic Beasley's really been up and down his career so far. At number 62, we got the Green Bay Packers. They're going to take the most complete tight end from Notre Dame, Cole Kmet. They have Jay Sternberger. They moved on from Jimmy Graham, thank God. And I just think that this makes a lot of sense. There's not a lot of receivers here I love, which I would probably go with. Maybe a Devin Duvernay, something like that. But for right now, we're going to go with Green Bay Packers getting Cole Kmet from Notre Dame. I mean, he's a pass catcher. Like, that's what he does. He's a good pass catching tight end. So that's the play here at number 62. At number 63, we got the Kansas City Chiefs on the clock. They're going to take Isaiah Wilson, offensive tackle from Georgia. It's not crucial for them to take a tackle here. And I've seen Wilson like all over the board. I've seen first round. I've seen like fourth round. Like, he's been way, up and down. But I think that ultimately, I don't think he's necessarily ready to start right now. The Chiefs have 2 starting tackles already, but they're under contract till 2022. But I think this gives them time to develop. They always want to have good tackles. Like, if you're on the Chiefs, like, you never want to have a sub, 15 offensive line. You want to have a beyond average offensive line when you have Mahomes. Like, you got to keep them upright best you can. So I think they're investing in the positions like, hey, we don't need this right now, but Wilson can be a good tackle at the next level, after 1 or 2 years. Then we don't have to pay one of these X guys. You can pay Wilson. So that's the move here. And at number 64, maybe what's going to shock Curtis Samuel, my guy, the most, is the Seattle Seahawks. They're going to take quarterback Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason was like Jordan Love in the fact that I couldn't really figure out where to put him, but I knew he's going to go in this round. That's just where all the mocks are going. So I was trying to figure out, like, where do I put this guy? Like, and he's a pocket guy. Like, what I've always thought, though, is that I think that makes more sense for quarterbacks to do something different than what their starters do. A lot of people are like, hey, you want to have a guy that can be mobile and do other things that Russell Wilson can do. But it's like, but then teams prepare for Russell Wilson. So it's like, when teams prepare for Russell Wilson, then Jacob Eason comes in and is like, hey, wait, we don't need to, like, run around anymore. Like, and now we have to watch out for this guy's cannon arm. Like, I think that that's just something to look at, and vice versa. It's like, when you have Brady as your starter, you want to have a mobile quarterback where it's like, hey, we weren't ready for this guy to just run around. Yeah, maybe he's not accurate, but hey, he can pick up the first down with his legs. That's something I always thought was interesting to think about, because when you have the backup quarterback in, I think the best option is just to be like, hey, like, surprise. Like, it's something their team isn't prepared for. I think that's the best way, especially in game. I think it's the best way to really deploy the backup quarterback position. And the Seahawks don't have another quarterback on their team. So, like, they are going to have to draft one, probably. Maybe they'll sign a free agent. But right now, they don't have another quarterback. And if you look at a stat I looked at, 57 quarterbacks started the games last year. So don't tell me that backup quarterbacks don't matter, because backup quarterbacks play a lot. And if you look at the last 2 Super Bowl winning teams, they had their backup quarterbacks play significant games in the 2 seasons that they won. Nick Foles, obviously with the Eagles, won. And last year, Patrick Mahomes was injured. Matt Moore came in and was played well enough to keep the train rolling. So Jacob Eason is my guy for the Seattle Seahawks. Maybe he gets some action. I don't know. I hope not. God, I love Russell Wilson. Hope he keeps playing. But that's going to wrap us up, guys. That is Mock Draft 3.0, the second round for the Underdog Sports Network. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to leave a comment below what you think, what you don't like, what you liked, and anything else. Any questions about the mock. The NFL draft's coming up quick, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be digital. Talk to you guys later. And again, find me on Twitter at @AndrewErickson_.